Hey everybody, and welcome back, or welcome if you are new. Hello, hi. So, today I am going to be presenting a vlog to you. This is going to be a very interesting journey you and I are about to go on. But before we get into anything else, if you are a fan of extreme horror, thrillers, and smut, I highly think we should be best friends, like really best friends. And in order to solidify that friendship, I would encourage you to hit the subscribe button down below, like this video, and hit the bell to notify yourself of when new shit gets posted, okay? So with that being said, this vlog you are about to watch, should you choose to continue watching this video, is a spiritual sequel to one that currently exists on my channel. So a couple months ago in October, Gabby from Gabby Reads and Olivia from Olivia Reads a Latte hosted their annual Camp Weekend Ween read-along, which is basically this readathon where you read spooky books around Halloween time. And I was like, all right, let's do it. Let's get, this is gonna be real good for us. It went so wrong for me as a person. The theme was to read monster horror books. Now, the first book I read in that readathon was a 1-star. It was a terrible garbage piece of like actual literary abomination, toxic waste. We're not gonna talk about that, but it was so bad that I slid into Gabby's DMs and was like, hey, girl, look, I'm having a problem here. Like, I wanna read monster books, but monster horror just doesn't cut it for me. I like my horror to be in the human realm, which is why I read so much extreme horror. Is there any way that I could maybe switch things up a little bit? And she was like, what do you have in mind? And I was like, can I read monster porn? And she was like, that sounds like a fantastic idea. What kind of monsters are there? You got zombies, ghosts, aliens. What about monster cocks? If you want to see the first part of this vlog, I advise you to watch this video where I read the manga, The Titan's Bride, which was a whole ass trip, okay? It was just a lot. For this video, I read the following books. I read Tentacles and Triathlons, which was a buddy read with my good friends Amanda and Sarah. And then I read Soul Eater by Lily Mayne, which was divine, pristine, beautiful masterpiece. I love it. And then I read A Lady of Rook's Grave Manor, which is essentially Den of Vipers, but monster smut. Okay, let me this readathon went so wrong, but so right. So, with that being said, enjoy the vlog.
The next day.
Hey everyone, good morning, hi. So first I just want to say excuse the sound of sweeping in the background. This neighbor next to me literally sweeps for 3 hours a day, and I know that it's a very mild background noise, but there's just nothing I can do about it personally, so I just ask that you consider my feelings. So I got a Starbucks iced caramel macchiato, typical order with the extra pump of caramel, because as we established in the Flowers in the Attic vlog, if you don't get that extra pump, it is gonna taste like milk. Speaking of milking, let me discuss the other book I read for Camp Weekend Ween, and that is Tentacles and Triathlons. Yes, this is a book that I read very spontaneously. Last night I was on sprints with Amanda and Sarah, two of my very good friends, two of my closest friends on here. Earlier in the month, Amanda and I buddy read this book called Shallow River, and it took each of us like 3 weeks to read because it was just not the vibe. It was just not it. But last night, I was telling her that I switched my entire TBR to just monster smut, preferably of the gay variety, and she sent me fan art. I don't know if I can even display the fan art because I need to be very careful on here after my cows video. If you know, you know. Make it make sense. Anyway, So she sent me this fan art and I was like, what the fuck is this? What the hell kind of Shape of Water stuff is this? And she sends me a link saying that this is actually a book that exists that I can purchase on the Kindle unlimited right now. I did that. Okay, so that book is Tentacles and Triathlons, and she and I buddy read that book. We started and finished the book throughout the entire freaking sprint. In all my 2 short years of booktube, I think this is probably the most successful buddy read I've ever had. To read an entire book with a friend of yours and see their reaction in real time just there, and during the sprints we were texting each other, it was a wild ride. This book is wild. This book is pretty crazy and I loved it so much. So I took some notes, as one does. So we followed this guy named Reese, who when he was 10 years old, he was walking in the woods, he was all alone, his dad was being a jerk to him, and he bumps into this monster, and this monster scares him, and then he goes back to his dad, and his dad is the kind of person who expects so much of him, but is nice to his sister, and invalidates his feelings and his fears, and so he develops this sort of trauma from monsters, which is an issue because they live in a world where there was this integration, so the monsters and the humans are coexisting, kind of like Crescent City by Sarah J Maas. It's like the monsters exist in the real world, they do human jobs, they paint, they swim, they participate in human society. You've got all these kinds of monsters, you've got griffins, you've got wolfmen, you've got vampires, you've got all these kinds of things, right? And the other point of view we follow is this guy named Cyrus. Now Cyrus is a very rare breed of monster. He is a kraken, okay? Tentacles. Catch my drift? So the book opens up with us meeting Cyrus and his friends. One of his friends is Fallon the Griffith. There were quite a number of characters, so I got pretty confused, so just bear with me. Okay, so we follow this guy named Cyrus, and he's this gay kraken. I believe one of his friends, Atlas, is getting married to this human woman. This human woman happens to be the sister of Reese. So at the beginning of the book, we follow Cyrus in this party, and he meets Reese, and for some reason his mating tentacle touches Reese, and a misunderstanding happens, okay? Reese, because he was traumatized as a child, instinctually flinches away, and Cyrus, we learn that his mating tentacle, upon touching Reese, builds this connection that shows him that Reese was his mate. So yes, it is very cheesy, very insta-love-ish, but I was down to ride. Like, I was just into it. I went into this book knowing exactly what I was getting into, but also not knowing what I was getting into. I didn't know that it was set in the modern world, but I'm not complaining at this point. I'm not complaining. So then we learn that Reese is competing in this triathlon, but he's not that good a swimmer. So Cyrus the Kraken, who is a natural in the water, agrees to train him for the triathlon. And I swear, the way Cyrus is described was like wild. Tentacles, piranha teeth, 2 tongues. It was a whole thing, okay? So while they are training for the triathlon, they start to get closer. Reese starts to come out and say that like, hey, this was a misunderstanding. I'm sorry for being a jerk and flinching when you touched me. And Cyrus is just like, oh shit, should I tell him that he's my mate? I don't know what to do. There's like a scene where Reese asks him out and is so used to talking to humans that he's like, would you like to eat sushi? Without taking into account the fact that he was like a sea creature. And then he was like, oh shit, sorry, I didn't mean that you had to eat seafood with me. And Cyrus was like, dude, chill, fish eat fish all the fucking time, okay? So they go out, they have sushi, and Reese starts to develop a liking for Cyrus. There is a dream sequence. That's all I'm gonna say on that. There was a dream sequence. Dreams were had. I actually really liked how self-aware this book was, because for any of you who watched anime and were kids, I'm sure you've heard about the tentacle porn hentai genre, and this book actually like talks about it. He has like a wet dream of yaoi tentacle porn. Yeah, another thing I really loved about this book was that it really explored the mechanics of how tentacles work. Krakens don't have genitalia, but they do have mating tentacles, which self-lubricate and okay, I might have forgotten to mention that Cyrus has a British accent for some reason. Yeah, that was a thing in this book, in this world, in this life. Now let's talk about the steam. Okay, because there is some of that, alright? So we learn throughout the story that Reese is developing feelings for Cyrus, and Cyrus has this, like, crush on Reese that he thought would never be answered. He thought his love would be unrequited, right? But eventually they do the nasty. And girl, I mean, the tentacles have suction cups. This is so hard to talk about. Let me just pick the camera up because I'm getting actual anxiety talking about this out loud, but bitch, okay. So so while they're doing it, like, the tentacles are like going all up on Reese's like sensitive parts, so it like goes into Reese's and okay, I don't know, I don't know what y'all think, okay, but like direct suction to the prostate sounds like it hurts. It doesn't sound fun, it sounds painful. I just need to say that Reese has this women's lingerie kink where he wears lace thongs. That was a thing. And when I looked at the author's Instagram page, because bitch, y'all know I stalked. Okay, I stalked. Stalking happened. Obsessive stalking took place the second I finished reading this book because I need to be best friends with this author because I am intrigued by the mind that came up with something like this. There is fan art of Reese in the undies, and you can see the root. I don't know how this fan art was allowed on Instagram to begin with, but look, okay? Look, I mean, it was nice. I was not complaining. So, like, overall, I did give the book, like, 4 stars, but the fan art gets 10 stars. 10 million stars. Like, that is beautiful shit. There's a line of dialogue where we learn that Cyrus has 3 hearts, and he tells Reese, "My 3 hearts beat for you." This is the kind of book that does what it says on the box, you know? I dug it. Like, I was attached to I love the characters. I enjoyed the story. I don't really read sports romance, but those that I have read were like, you know, Him by Elle Kennedy and Serena Bowen, and Pinned by Maris Black, and you know, we all know that we're not reading that shit for the sport, but actually seeing them train for this triathlon was a pretty decent highlight of this book. One of the training montages actually helps Reese open up about his trauma, and that was really adorable to read about. So yeah, I would recommend this book. It's pretty short. It's only 200 or so pages. If you want to see my live reactions, I will link the sprints I did this down below. Yeah, I am so glad that that first book bombed, because then I would have been reading fucking monster horror and been like, okay, yeah, monsters and horror, this happens. But I think monsters in horror, they've had their time, okay? We need monsters and
Later that day.
Ooh, it's been a long time since I've filmed with this angle. Alright, so yesterday I read one of those books that I just could not put down for the life of me. It's one of those books that I start and I could stop to vlog and give a here and now analysis of what I'm feeling in the moment, but I just could not do this with this book because it's one of those books that I just did not want to stop to vlog because it would ruin the momentum of the story and the gradual tension that was being built up, okay? So that book is Soul Eater by Lily Mayne. I didn't really know what to expect going into this book beyond the fact that it was the #1 book recommended on this Goodreads list of male monster smut, which is what I was in the mood for. I didn't know what this book was about going into it, but it's one of those books where the first paragraph alone had me so fucking hooked that I just could not put it down. So we follow this man named Danny. He's 23 years old. He comes from this really rough past. His mom died, and he lives in this dystopian world where people have to enlist in the military to combat this threat of monsters. So the United States population has dwindled because of this monster uprising, and humanity has moved to coastal cities all run by the military, and the entire swath of middle America is now this barren wasteland. There's no people, there's no military to save you, so that's where all the monsters thrive. It's like the last stand of humans versus monsters, and that's basically what the setting is like. So we follow Danny, who we learn grew up very poor, had a single mom. His single mom dies at the beginning of the story, and we learn that he had to enlist in the military basically to live. So at the beginning of the book, him and some people are going on this military excursion to hunt down this creature called the Win. Now the Win is this monster who wears this cloak. You can't see his face. He has horns and oh. It's raining. Hold on, I gotta move in, it's raining. Oh gosh, are we gonna do this with rain? No, I don't think we can do this with rain. The noises, okay, be right back.
Later that day.
Whenever you're just trying to do what you do to live, if it's not the change in the lighting, it's the change of water. So anyway, I have moved because it rained, so we're gonna give the update here. So this wind creature, you can't see his face because he's cloaked, he wears this hood, he has these horns, and he comes every 3 years, I believe, to enact this mass genocide on human beings, right? So at the beginning of the book, Danny is hunting this creature down, and we learn that no matter how many times humanity tried to kill him, with guns, with tanks, with fire, nothing ever worked. Nothing was ever able to kill it. Basically, this creature wipes out Danny's entire squad, except for him. So Danny wakes up in the military outpost. His bosses tell him that they managed to capture the win and that they need Danny, the last remaining survivor, to go in and question him. And the first 30-40 pages of the book is Danny going in and trying to get to know this creature more and understand its motivations. And they have this thing where he can only ask him like one question a day. Now, one thing leads to another, and the Win insinuates that the people who run the military are not as innocent as they seem. That they are actually harvesting innocent monsters for power in order to use them as weapons, and that there's this whole nefarious military plot that these people are not telling the people who are fighting for them. One thing leads to another, and the Win and Danny manage to escape from this military outpost. Danny reluctantly follows the Win into the wasteland of Middle America that is completely depopulated, and he does this willingly. He joins the Win on this excursion through the wastes, and it is beautiful. It is so beautiful, okay?
Later that day,
I didn't know what to expect from this book going in. My only experiences with monster romance were Ice Planet Barbarians and Tentacles and Triathlons. So I was under the impression that this genre was just goofy, tongue-in-cheek, funny. But over here, I'm seeing a very different side of the genre. On one hand, it reads like an actual dystopian story, but it's also really smutty. I don't want to give so much away because there are a lot of surprises to be had, but the dynamic between Danny and the Win, it's just so special. Danny is this guy who we learn has been a loner his whole life, and he's never had any sexual experience. And we don't really know about his sexuality all that much. And then Win is this creature who he doesn't even see, okay? So he only gets to know him based on personality alone. And just seeing such different people coexist while they traverse the wastes, this vast barren wasteland where monsters and creatures could come out anytime and get them. It was just so fun. It was just such a fun time. I loved this book. The characters, the setting. When the stuff finally hit, it seemed more like a very meaningful connection between two very misunderstood creatures who had so many false perceptions about one another before the story began, and that's always like the best kind of romance there is. Also, monster romance. Oh my gosh. I don't know if anyone wants to psychoanalyze me, but I feel like I have this thing where I've lost all hope of finding love in the real world. That when I read a book about monsters, it just it gives me hope in my life. Like, I really don't know how to say it. Now, although I did really love this book, I settled on a 4-star rating. Now, the reason I gave it 4 stars and not 5 stars is because although the nasty stuff is really hot, okay? It does get a little bit repetitive towards the end. It reached a point where I felt that I had read the scene before, that it was practically copy-pasted, and that's always a huge no when it comes to smut. I need different things to happen in different scenes, especially when people get to know each other more and get more comfortable with each other. Like, more stuff comes out the more comfortable you get with someone, right? So I was hoping that the scenes would have been more innovative. But that being said, the monster's bodily functions had me blushing. Okay, I was like, oh my gosh. And another thing is, like, this is a book set in a dystopian world. So it is a dystopian fantasy romance. And that being said, there are moments near the climax that are all hope is lost moments. And I feel like they were glossed over very quickly. I feel like we could have spent more time in those hope is lost moments, and I'm not saying that those moments were a lost cause or that they were badly done by any means. No, all I'm saying is that despite the fact that they were effective enough, I would have liked the book to lean further into those moments to really put us in a sense of dread as we were fearing for the potential future of these characters. Another thing is that I was quite annoyed with certain scenes involving Danny and what he would say to Win towards the end of the story, but eventually I reflected on it, and I'm glad I'm vlogging this the next day when I've had a chance to sleep on it as I was reading the book, because in hindsight, the way Danny responds to certain things at the end of the story did annoy me a little bit, but they do match up to the character that was set up at the beginning of the story. It's one of those books where I love the characters so much that when the book ended, I instantly started missing them. I was like, damn, I want to go back and do that all over again. What the hell? What am I doing here at the end of this story? Monster romance is one of the best things I've discovered all year, and we need more books in this genre, okay? I am saying it now, we need more books in this freaking genre. I cannot wait to be checking out more of this genre, and Soul Eater by Lily Mayne, you did good. There's no going back from this.
The next day.
everybody, hi. I'm currently doing some sprints in the other room, but I felt that I would just use the present moment to get some vlogging in because bitch, it has been a fucking trip. So if anyone's wondering why this background looks different and why my suitcase is all unpacked behind me, it's because I am in Sydney, Australia. I'm in a different country. Long story short, I'm gonna be here for about 4 months. It's not really a vacation, it's kind of like a job hunting opportunity for me because if I manage to secure some stable employment over here that gives me enough to support myself, I can actually move here. And moving here has been a dream of mine, so I sincerely hope to make it happen for myself. Anyway, so this has been a crazy journey. I didn't finish my final book for Monster Mash Camp Weekend Ween because on the final day I had fucking food poisoning. Okay, so I got food poisoning and the very next day I had to get on a flight. But I was reading A Lady of Rooksgrave Manor, and this is a reverse harem monster smut book, and we follow this woman who is working as a maid in this house, and she's super fucking horny. And one day, one of the doctors who attends to the lady of the house says that there is a potential opening for her in this place called Rook's Grave Manor. She accepts this position as a prostitute in a brothel, and the clientele aren't horny men, okay? They're horny monsters. So within the first 20% of the book, this woman gets down by an invisible man, a werewolf, and a vampire. Okay? It's like this author wrote this book like nobody else was gonna read it, okay? Because this book is filthy. It is filthy, it is dirty, it's disgusting, it is depraved, and I am loving it, okay? I am loving this book so fucking much. It is some of the most explicit smut I have ever fucking read. The descriptions of these monsters and what their various bodies can do and the way she gets arousal from them is amazing. There's barely any plot to this. It's literally just drilling and pounding, and the drilling and pounding is innovative, okay? There is some very, oh my goodness, scenes involving voyeurism. They go to this theater where they watch a play, and in that play, a woman takes it from a werebear, okay, not a werewolf, but a werebear, and everyone in the audience who's watching this play is having some fun, if you know what I mean. And at some point, the main attraction becomes our main girl, who's named Esther, I think. Esther and a couple of her monster buddies get it on, and there is some electricity play. Like, I've heard of knife play, I've heard of blood play, gun play, electricity play. That was new to me, and I'm not mad that I found out about it because it was as interesting as it sounds. Also, there is a scene where I think the vampire and werewolf, I think, kind of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde-ish werewolf guy get it on in front of her. It was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. I am really enjoying this book, okay? I am 73% in. There isn't really much plot, but if I were to hint at some conflict, I would say that there's this guy who's threatening the safety of the house. I don't know exactly what this antagonist is doing, but it's one of those books where the smut is so good that I really don't care if the author dispenses of the plot, because it's literally like Den of Vipers, but far better written and with monsters. This is feeling like a 5-star for me, honestly. And I am officially a monster fucker. Okay, didn't think the genre was for me, but now I am fucking obsessed. I need to get back to my sprints, because they're probably like, where the fuck is McKay? And I'm like, trying to be productive. But yeah, check in soon.
The next day.
Alright, hey, if anyone is wondering why I look like actual shit, it's because, so it's the next day, and last night I slept at 9 p.m. Okay, that never happens for me. I usually sleep really late, but I was so tired. But my sleeping schedule is so fucked that I woke up at 12 midnight, okay? And then I slept a bit more, woke up at 2, woke up at like 3, and it was just terrible. Anyway, so this morning I finished A Lady of Rook's Grave Manor, and it was a 4-star book, okay? I mean, I definitely see a lot of similarities with Den of Vipers, specifically in the fact that it is a reverse harem, and the way this book ends and the way that book ended did have some pretty distinct similarities. I liked Den of Vipers more. It was just funnier, and when it was not smutty, it was stupid and entertaining. With this book, when it wasn't smutty, it just was not that fun for me. I found myself really bored, and the third act was just kind of a chore to get through. Once all the shocking stuff from the first act and the second act is over, and we start getting into the conflict of the story and seeing things start to get resolved and people start professing their love for one another, when we got to that part, I was just like not having fun anymore, so I gave this 4 stars. Although the non-smutty portions were a chore to get through, I do give this book major points for the fact that I didn't know going in that this was a reverse harem monster smut book with bisexual monster men and a badass female protagonist who's down for some triple. You know what? Get it, girl. I would. So yeah, that was the vlog. I did go abroad, which explains the different background, But yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, please leave the zombie emoji, okay? Do that, that could be fun. And if you've also read some stuff from this genre, comment some suggestions down below. Perhaps I will do a part 2. I will most likely do a part 2, okay? So with that being said, thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. I hope to see you in future videos, and as always, take care.
I lose myself